The message came on a Tuesday morning. Captain was drinking her third cup of coffee when her communications officer shouted across the bridge of the exploration vessel Wanderer. The young man's face had turned white. His hands were shaking as he pointed at his screen. "Captain, you need to see this," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. Walked over and looked at the screen. At first, she did not understand what she was seeing. The sensors showed something massive, something so large that the computer kept recalculating, thinking there was an error. But there was no error. In the dead system they had been mapping, floating in the darkness between two dying stars, was a ship. But calling it a ship felt wrong. It was the size of Earth's moon, perhaps bigger. Its surface was covered in structures that looked like cities. Towers reached up from its metal skin like mountains. Valleys of machinery stretched across its hull for thousands of kilometers. "That's not possible," said. But it was there. The sensors did not lie. Humanity had been exploring space for only 200 years. They had met other species. They had learned that the galaxy was full of life. Thousands of civilizations existed among the stars. Some were friendly. Some were not. Most simply did not care about the young species from the small blue planet. Humans were considered primitive by galactic standards. Their ships were slow. Their technology was basic. They had no great history among the stars. They were newcomers to a very old game. But now was staring at something that changed everything. She gave the order to approach. Her crew was nervous. Some of them wanted to turn back. They wanted to report the finding and let someone else deal with it, but was curious. That was a human trait that many aliens found strange. Humans always wanted to know more. They always wanted to see what was around the next corner. The Wanderer moved closer. As they approached, the true scale of the object became clear. It took them 6 hours just to fly along one side of it. The ship was covered in strange symbols. The metal of its hull was dark and old. There were no lights, no signs of power. It looked dead. But it was beautiful in a terrible way. Ordered her crew to send a message back to Earth. The transmission would take weeks to arrive. Faster-than-light communication was still beyond human technology. They would have to wait for a response, but did not want to wait. She wanted to know what this thing was. She did not know that her message had been detected by others. The Collective of Aligned Worlds was the largest political body in the galaxy. It included over 4,000 species. It had existed for millions of years. When the human's message was intercepted, it caused immediate concern. Ambassador of the was the first to respond. There were ancient beings. They had watched species rise and fall for longer than most stars had burned. Was old even by standards. He had seen many strange things in his long life, but the images from the human ship made him feel something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. He called an emergency meeting of the Collective Council. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in the great chamber on the station at the center of the galaxy. The chamber was vast. It could hold millions of beings. Today, it felt small. "The humans have found a precursor vessel," announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. The effect was immediate. Some species began to shout, others fell silent. Many simply left, their fear too great to remain. The precursors were legends, stories told to frighten young beings. They were said to have existed billions of years ago at the very beginning of the galaxy. They had built things that understanding. They had shaped stars and moved planets. And then they had vanished, leaving behind only ruins and mysteries. Most species believed the precursors were myths, stories created by primitive minds to explain things they did not understand. But some ruins had been found over the millions of years of galactic history. Small things, fragments, enough to suggest that the legends might have some truth to them. No one had ever found a precursor ship. "This must be a mistake," said representative of the. They were a proud species. They controlled a large part of the galaxy and did not like the idea that a primitive species like humanity had made such a discovery. The humans do not have the technology to correctly identify such things. Their sensors are primitive. The images are clear, replied. The symbols on the hull match those found in precursor ruins across the galaxy. There is no mistake. Then we must take control of the situation, said. The humans cannot be allowed to interfere with something so important. They do not understand what they have found. Many voices agreed with. The humans were young and foolish. They did not understand the dangers of the galaxy. They did not understand that some things were better left alone. But others disagreed. The humans found it, said a soft voice. It belonged to representative of they were a quiet species. They rarely spoke in council meetings, but when they did, others listened. They were known for their wisdom. By the laws of the collective, they have the right to claim it. Laws written for normal circumstances, argued. This is not normal. This is a precursor vessel. It could contain technology that would change the balance of power in the galaxy. We cannot allow humans to have such power. And yet we have no right to take it from them, replied. If we ignore our own laws when it suits us, we are no better than the chaos we claim to stand against. The debate continued for days. Meanwhile, the Wanderer remained beside the great ship, had no idea that her discovery had thrown the galaxy into turmoil. She was too busy trying to understand what she had found. Her crew had sent drones to explore the surface of the massive vessel. The drones sent back images that were hard to believe. The structures on the hull were indeed like cities. There were buildings and roads and things that might have been parks or gardens, now long dead and covered in the dust of ages. Everything was built on a scale that made no sense. Doorways that were hundreds of meters tall. Corridors that could fit a small mountain. Whatever built this was big, said Doctor, the ship's scientist. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had spent his whole life studying alien civilizations. Nothing had prepared him for this. How big? Asked. Shrugged. I don't know. Maybe they weren't big at all. Maybe the ship was built by machines. Or maybe it's not a ship at all. Maybe it's something else entirely. We're looking at technology that is billions of years old. Our assumptions might be completely wrong. Nodded, she understood. They were children looking at the works of gods. They could not expect to understand everything at once. She made a decision. I'm going aboard, she said. Her crew protested. It was too dangerous. They did not know what was inside. There could be traps or defenses. The atmosphere, if there was one, could be poison. 1,000 things could go wrong. But was determined. This was the greatest discovery in human history. She would not sit in her ship and watch from a distance. She chose a small team, volunteered immediately. Lieutenant, the ship's security chief, insisted on coming. A young engineer named David completed the group. He was brilliant with machines. If anyone could understand precursor technology, it would be him. They took a shuttle and flew toward the great ship. Finding a way inside was difficult. The hull seemed solid, but eventually David found what looked like a docking port. It was massive, designed for ships much larger than their little shuttle, but it would work. The shuttle landed in a vast chamber. The walls stretched away into darkness. Their lights could not reach the ceiling. The air was thin but breathable, cold but not deadly. Was the first to step out. The floor beneath her boots was made of something like metal, but it was warm, almost alive. She had the strange feeling that the ship knew they were there, that it was watching them. This is incredible, whispered. His voice echoed in the darkness. They began to explore. The chamber led to corridors that led to more chambers. Each one was filled with machines and structures they did not understand. Some things looked like computers. Others looked like sculptures. Many looked like nothing they had ever seen. David stopped in front of a wall covered in symbols. I've seen these before, he said. In the archives. There's a precursor ruin on a planet called Seven. The same symbols are carved into the walls there. Can you read them? Asked. David shook his head. No one can, not completely, but I recognize some patterns. I think this is some kind of control room. He reached out and touched one of the symbols. Nothing happened. Then everything happened. Lights came on throughout the chamber. A deep hum filled the air. The floor vibrated beneath their feet. His heart pounded in her chest. She grabbed her weapon, though she knew it would be useless against whatever was waking up. A voice spoke. It came from everywhere and nowhere. It was not words exactly. It was more like thoughts that appeared directly in their minds. Strange and alien, but somehow understandable. "Caretakers," the voice said, "you have come at last." His mouth was dry. She forced herself to speak. "Who are you?" "I am the ship," the voice replied. "I am the first of the fleet. I have waited for the caretakers for 3 billion years." The humans looked at each other. They did not understand. Caretakers, fleet. "We are not caretakers," said. "We are humans. We are explorers from a planet called Earth." There was silence. The ship seemed to be thinking. "I do not know this word, humans. I do not know this place, Earth, but you have come. You have touched the awakening symbol. You are caretakers now." Before could respond, the voice continued. "There are others approaching, many others. They come with weapons and fear. The protocols require me to inform you. As caretakers, you must decide what happens next." Did not understand, but she understood enough. Someone else was coming, and they were not friendly. Back on the Wanderer, the communication officer was shouting again. His face was even than before. "Captain, we have contacts. Lots of contacts. Ships are coming out of hyperspace all around us." Could see them through the shuttle's sensors. Dozens of ships, then hundreds. They bore the symbols of the collective of aligned worlds. Warships. The kind that could turn the Wanderer into vapor with a single shot. A message came through. "Human vessel. This is Admiral of the collective fleet. You are ordered to leave the artifact immediately. This area is now under collective control. Any resistance will be met with force." Looked at her team. They were scared. She was scared too, but she was also angry. They had found this ship. They had awakened it. They had been named its caretakers, and now these aliens wanted to take it away. She keyed her communicator. "Admiral, this is Captain of the Earth vessel Wanderer. We decline your order. This ship belongs to humanity now. We are its caretakers. We will not leave." There was silence on the other end. Imagine the Admiral's shock. No one refused the collective fleet. No one was foolish enough to try. But humans were different. They had always been different. They were curious and stubborn and brave in ways that made no sense to older, wiser species. The voice of the great ship spoke in its mind again. "You have chosen to stay. You have chosen to defend. This is good. Caretakers must be strong. The fleet will help you." The fleet asked. "Yes, this is only the first. There are more, many more. They sleep in the darkness between galaxies, but they will wake if the caretakers call." His heart nearly stopped. More ships, ships like this one, planet-sized vessels waiting in the void. She looked out at the collective fleet. Hundreds of warships, the greatest military force in the galaxy. And suddenly, they seemed very small. She smiled. "Ship," she said, "I think we need to have a longer conversation." Far away, in the great chamber of the Collective Council, Ambassador watched the scene unfold on the viewing screens. He watched as the ancient vessel's lights came on. He watched as power readings spiked beyond anything the sensors could measure. He watched as the tiny human captain refused to back down. He felt the same fear as before, but now there was something else. Respect. He did not know what would happen next. No one did. The galaxy was entering a new age, an age where the legends of the precursors were no longer legends, an age where the youngest species in the collective had suddenly become the most important. He wondered if the humans understood what they had done. He suspected they did not yet. But they would learn, they would have to. The precursors had not vanished by accident. They had left for a reason. They had left their fleet behind for a purpose. And now, after 3 billion years, that purpose was about to be revealed. The galaxy would never be the same. On the bridge of the great ship stood in the light of 1 billion stars. She was a small creature in a vast universe, but she did not feel small. She felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The ship hummed around her, ancient and patient and full of secrets. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, other ships began to stir. The caretakers had arrived. The fleet was waking. And the galaxy gazed in astonishment. Admiral had commanded the collective fleet for 300 years. In that time, he had fought in 17 wars. He had destroyed pirate armadas and put down rebellions. He had faced enemies that would make most beings run screaming into the void. Nothing had ever made him hesitate. Until now. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Judgment, and watched the readings from the ancient vessel. Power levels were climbing. Systems that had been dead for billions of years were coming back to life. And at the center of it all was a tiny human ship and a captain who refused to follow orders. "Admiral," his tactical officer said, "the artifact is charging some kind of weapon system. We are detecting massive energy buildup along its equator." Felt cold. The weapon system ran around the entire ship. It was thousands of kilometers long. If it fired, it would destroy everything in the system. His entire fleet would be gone in an instant. "All ships hold position," he ordered. "Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage." He could hear the fear in his officers' voices as they relayed the command. They had come here expecting an easy victory. They had expected the primitive humans to surrender immediately. No one had expected this. Opened a channel to the human captain. "Captain," he said, "I must advise you to reconsider. The collective does not wish conflict with humanity, but this artifact is too dangerous to be controlled by a species as young as yours. Surely you must see reason." There was a pause. Then the human's voice came through the speakers. She sounded calm, too calm for someone facing the greatest fleet in the galaxy. "Admiral, I appreciate your concern, but I must respectfully disagree. The ship has chosen us. It calls us caretakers. I don't fully understand what that means yet, but I know one thing. We're not leaving." Closed his eyes. This was exactly what he had feared. Humans were impossible. Every species in the galaxy knew it. They were reckless and stubborn and completely unwilling to accept their place in the natural order of things. And now they had somehow bonded with a precursor vessel. "Captain," he said, "I am trying to help you. You do not know what you are dealing with. The precursors were not benevolent beings. Their technology destroyed civilizations. It caused wars that lasted millions of years. If you activate that ship fully, you could cause damage beyond anything you can imagine." "Then teach us," replied. "Help us understand, but do not threaten us. That will not work." Wanted to scream. He wanted to give the order to fire and end this madness before it spread. But he could not. The weapons system on the ancient ship was aimed at his fleet. One wrong move and they would all die. He needed time. He needed to think. "Very well," he said. "I will withdraw my fleet to a safe distance. But this matter is not over. The collective council will decide what happens next." He gave the order to retreat. His officers looked at him with confusion. The great admiral retreating from a single human ship. It seemed impossible, but they obeyed. They always obeyed. The fleet pulled back. The ancient vessel did not fire. Watched the readings as the human team continued to explore the great ship. He did not know what they would find. He was not sure he wanted to know. But he knew one thing for certain. Everything was about to change. Inside the ancient vessel was having the strangest conversation of her life. The ship's voice was not like talking to a computer. It was more like talking to a very old, very patient grandmother. The ship had been alone for 3 billion years. It had waited in the darkness, dreaming of the day when someone would come. Now that someone had arrived, it wanted to talk. "Tell me about your people," the ship said. "Tell me about Earth." Tried to explain. She told the ship about the blue oceans and green forests, about the billions of humans who lived and worked and dreamed beneath the pale yellow sun, about the wars they had fought and the peace they had built, about their journey to the stars. The ship listened to everything. "You are young," it said, "very young. My creators were ancient when they built me. They had existed for hundreds of millions of years. They had seen the birth and death of countless civilizations, but they were tired." Tired asked. Yes, they had done everything, seen everything, built everything. There was nothing new left to discover, nothing that could surprise them, so they decided to leave. Leave where? The ship was silent for a moment. "I do not know. They did not tell me. They only said that they were going beyond the galaxy, beyond the universe perhaps. They wanted to find something new, something that could make them feel wonder again." Tried to understand. A species so old and powerful that they had grown bored with reality itself. It was almost too big to comprehend. "Why did they leave the fleet behind?" she asked. "For the caretakers," the ship replied. "They knew that the galaxy would need protection after they left. They knew that someday a species would arise that was worthy of the task. They built the fleet and left instructions. When the caretakers arrived, the fleet would serve them." "But how did you know we were the caretakers? We just touched a symbol on the wall." The ship made a sound that might have been laughter. "The symbol was a test. Only a species with curiosity would touch it. Only a species without fear would come aboard. Only a species with hope would stay when danger came. You passed every test, Captain. You are caretakers." Shook her head. It seemed too simple, too random. The fate of the galaxy decided by a curious human touching a wall. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the precursors wanted someone who would act without overthinking, someone who would explore without fear, someone who would refuse to back down when threatened. Humans were good at that. Doctor had been listening to the conversation. Now he stepped forward with a question of his own. "You mentioned a fleet," he said. "How many ships are there?" The answer made everyone stop breathing. "There are 1,000 ships in the fleet," the voice said. "Each one is similar to me. Some are larger, some are smaller, some are designed for war, some are designed for creation. Together, we can shape the galaxy however the caretakers wish." 1,000 ships, each one the size of a planet, felt dizzy. It was too much power for anyone to hold. "Ship," she said, "can you show us the fleet?" "Of course." The walls around them changed. Suddenly, they were looking at the galaxy from above. Stars swirled in vast spirals of light, and scattered among them in the darkest spaces between the arms of the galaxy were points of red light. "Each point represents a ship," the voice explained. "They sleep in the void waiting for the call. Some have waited for 3 billion years. Others are younger, built by autonomous systems to replace those lost to accidents or time. The fleet is eternal. It will exist as long as the galaxy does." Stared at the display. The points of red light were everywhere, not clustered together like a normal fleet, spread out, hidden, waiting. An army that no one knew existed. "Why hasn't anyone found them before?" asked. "Surely in 3 billion years, someone must have stumbled across one of these ships." "Some have," the voice replied. "But without a caretaker, the ships do not respond. They appear as dead metal drifting in space. Scavengers have tried to harvest them for materials. They were unsuccessful. The ships cannot be damaged by conventional means." "Then why did you respond to us?" "Because you are the first to pass the tests. Many have found me over the ages. They came once long ago. They touched the symbol, but when danger came, they fled. They came as well. They tried to use force to take what they wanted. They failed. Others came and went. All of them failed." "But we passed," said. Yes, you came with curiosity. You touched the symbol with hope. You refused to leave when threatened. You are what the creators were looking for. You are caretakers. David had been quiet during the conversation. He was not good with words. He was better with machines. But now he had a question that needed to be asked. "What happens now?" he said. "What are we supposed to do?" The ship seemed to consider the question. "That is for you to decide. The fleet exists to serve the caretakers, but it does not control them. You are free to use this power however you wish. You can protect. You can destroy. You can explore. You can build. The choice is yours." Felt the weight of those words. The choice is yours. Such simple words. Such terrible responsibility. 1,000 planet-sized ships. Technology billions of years beyond anything humanity had ever created. Power that could reshape the galaxy. And it was hers to command. She looked at her team, looked scared but curious, looked determined, her hand resting on her weapon as if it could protect them from anything. David looked excited, his mind already racing with possibilities. They were not ready for this. No one could be ready for this. But they would try. Ship said, "I need you to teach us. Everything you know, everything about the fleet, everything about the precursors, everything about how to be caretakers, we need to understand." "Of course," the voice said, "teaching is one of my primary functions." The creators knew that the caretakers would need guidance. They prepared extensive records and training programs. It will take time, years perhaps, but I will teach you. "Good," said, "then let's start now." She turned to, "Lieutenant, contact the Wanderer. Tell them what's happening. Have them send a message to Earth. Everything, don't leave anything out." Nodded and moved to a console that the ship had created for human use. It was strange to see precursor technology adapt to accommodate their primitive needs, but the ship seemed happy to do it. David continued, "I want you to start cataloging everything you see, every symbol, every machine, every system. Document everything." "Yes, Captain." David was already pulling out his recording devices. "You're with me. We're going to keep exploring. If we're going to be caretakers, we need to know what we're taking care of." Smiled despite his fear. "I've been waiting my whole life for something like this." They began to move deeper into the great ship. As they walked, the lights came on ahead of them and dimmed behind them. The ship was guiding them, showing them the path. They passed through chambers filled with wonders. A room where gravity worked sideways, allowing them to walk on the walls. A garden where metal flowers bloomed with electromagnetic petals. A library where knowledge was stored as patterns of light floating in crystalline pillars. Each wonder was greater than the last. "How big is this ship?" asked. "The main structure is approximately 3,000 kilometers in diameter," the voice replied. "But much of the interior is folded space. The actual internal volume is significantly larger. There are regions I have not fully explored myself." Folded space. Had heard of the concept. Theoretically, it was possible to compress space inside a container, making the interior larger than the exterior. But no species in the galaxy had ever managed to do it. The precursors had done it 3 billion years ago. They reached a chamber that was different from the others. It was simple, almost empty. Just a raised platform in the center of the room, surrounded by a circle of lights. "This is the command center," the voice said. "From here, a caretaker can communicate with any ship in the fleet. They can give orders. They can access any system. They can do anything." Stepped onto the platform. Immediately, she felt a connection. It was like being plugged into something vast and infinite. She could sense the other ships out there in the darkness. Not clearly, just impressions, whispers of ancient minds waiting to be awakened. "The connection is partial," the voice explained. "Full bonding requires time and training, but you can already feel them, can't you?" "Yes," breathed. "Yes, I can." She stood there for a long moment, feeling the weight of stars and the patience of ages. She was holding the future of humanity in her hands, perhaps the future of the galaxy. It was terrifying. It was wonderful. She stepped off the platform. "We have a lot of work to do," she said. Far away, on the station at the center of the galaxy, the collective council was in chaos. News of Admiral's retreat had spread quickly. Representatives shouted at each other across the great chamber. Some demanded immediate action. Others called for caution. A few quietly began to leave, planning to inform their governments of what had happened. Ambassador watched the chaos with tired eyes. He had lived for so long. He had seen so many conflicts and crises, but this was different. This was not a war between species or a dispute over territory. This was the awakening of something ancient, something that had been sleeping since before any current species existed. He remembered the old stories, the legends his grandmother had told him when he was young, stories of the builders who had shaped the stars, stories of their great fleet that would someday return. He had always thought they were just stories. Now he knew better. A young aide approached him. "Ambassador, what should we do?" Considered the question. What could they do? The humans had power now, real power, power that made the collective's military look like children playing with toys. But power was not everything. The humans were still young, still learning. They would need guidance. They would need friends. And they would need to avoid making enemies. "We do nothing," said finally. "Not yet. We watch, we wait. We see what kind of caretakers the humans will be." "But Ambassador, what if they turn against us? What if they use the fleet to conquer the galaxy?" Smiled. It was a sad smile, full of ancient wisdom. "Then we will die," he said. "But I do not think that will happen. I have studied humans. They are strange creatures, violent sometimes, foolish often, but they have something that most species lose as they grow old." "What's that?" Hope said. "They always have hope, and beings with hope do not become conquerors, they become builders." He turned and walked away, leaving his aide confused and worried. He did not know if he was right. He did not know what the future would bring, but he had lived long enough to know that sometimes you had to trust. Sometimes you had to believe that things would work out. The humans had been given great power. Now they would have to prove they deserved it. The galaxy was watching. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the fleet waited for the caretakers to call. 6 months passed. Had not slept in her own bed during that time. She had not eaten a meal that she did not take while walking through endless corridors. She had not had a conversation that was not about duty and responsibility and the weight of 1,000 ancient ships. She was tired, but she could not stop. The ship, which she had named Atlas after the old Earth myth, had taught her so much. Every day brought new wonders and new terrors. She learned how to communicate with the fleet. She learned how to read the precursor language, at least the basic parts. She learned about the history of the galaxy before her species existed. It was overwhelming, but was human. Humans were good at being overwhelmed and continuing anyway. Her team had grown. Earth had sent ships full of scientists and engineers and diplomats. They had come carefully, passing through the collective fleet that still waited at the edge of the system. Admiral had not attacked, but he had not left either. He watched and waited like a predator studying its prey. Did not have time to worry about him. She had bigger problems. "Captain," said Doctor, he had lost weight over the past months. His hair had turned grayer, but his eyes were bright with excitement. "You need to see this." She followed him to a chamber deep in the ship. It was a medical bay, she had learned, but not for healing, for creation. "Atlas told me about this yesterday," explained. "The precursors could modify living beings, change their genetics, enhance their abilities. They used this technology on themselves for millions of years. Looked at the machines. They were beautiful and frightening. Great pods filled with strange liquids. arms ending in needles and tools she could not identify, screens displaying information in the flowing precursor script. "Can it work on humans?" she asked. Nodded. "Atlas says it can work on any carbon-based life form. It could make us stronger, smarter, give us longer lives, maybe much longer." Felt a chill. The temptation was obvious. Humans were fragile creatures, short-lived compared to many species in the galaxy. If they could change that, if they could become something more, it would solve so many problems. But at what cost? "We're not ready for this," she said. "Not yet. Lock this section down. No one enters without my permission." Looked disappointed but nodded. "Yes, Captain." She walked away, feeling the weight of another terrible decision. The precursor technology could help humanity in so many ways, but it could also destroy them, change them into something they were never meant to be. Being a caretaker was harder than she had imagined. That evening she stood on the command platform and reached out to the fleet. She did this every day now. The connection was stronger than before. She could feel individual ships, distant and dreamlike but real. One ship caught her attention. It was closer than the others, only a few light years away, and it felt different somehow, more awake. "Atlas," she said, "what is that ship, the one I can feel nearby?" "That is the second of the fleet," Atlas replied. "It is a constructor ship. It builds things. It has been partially awakened by your connection to me." "Can I talk to it?" "You can try." Focused on the distant presence. It was like trying to hold water in her hands, slippery and strange, but she kept trying. Finally, something responded. "Caretaker." The voice was different from Atlas, deeper, more mechanical. "You have reached far, this is good. What do you need?" "I want to understand," said. "I want to know what you can build." There was a pause, then images flooded her mind. Cities floating in space. Worlds transformed from barren rock to green paradise. Ships and stations and structures of impossible beauty. The constructor ship could build anything, anything at all. Opened her eyes, she was breathing hard, her heart was racing. "That was intense," she muttered. "The second is eager," Atlas said. "It has not built anything in 3 billion years. It wants to work again." "I'm sure it does." Stepped off the platform. Her mind was full of possibilities. With the constructor ship, humanity could expand across the galaxy. They could build homes for billions. They could create wonders that would stand for millions of years. But they had to be careful. Too much, too fast, and they would lose themselves. They would become dependent on technology they did not understand. They would stop being human. She needed advice. She needed to talk to people who were not part of this madness, people who could give her perspective. She called a meeting. The room she chose was one of the smaller chambers. It had been converted into a conference space, with chairs and tables made from materials that Atlas had created for them. Around the table sat the people trusted most. Doctor, still bright-eyed despite his exhaustion. Lieutenant, steady and calm as always. David, who had learned more about precursor technology than anyone else on the team. And 2 new faces, sent from Earth to help manage the growing situation. Admiral James Wright was a tall man with silver hair and a face carved from stone. He had commanded Earth's defense fleet for 20 years. He was practical and tough, and exactly what needed. Doctor was his opposite. Small and soft-spoken, she was Earth's leading expert on alien psychology. She understood how other species thought. She could help them navigate the complex politics of the galaxy. "Thank you all for coming," said. "We have a lot to discuss." She explained what she had learned, the fleet, the constructor ship, the medical technology, all of it. When she finished, the room was silent. Admiral Wright spoke first. "This is too much power for one person, for one species even. We need protocols, rules, limits." "I agree," said. "That's why I called this meeting. I want to create a council, a group that will make decisions together. No one person should control all of this. Who would be on this council? Doctor asked. That's what we need to decide, but I was thinking it should include people from different backgrounds, military, science, diplomacy, maybe even representatives from other species eventually. Doctor frowned. Other species, after the collective threatened us. Not all of them are our enemies, Doctor said. Some species disagreed with the decision to send the fleet. For example, they argued for human rights to the discovery. There are others who might be willing to work with us. Nodded, we can't do this alone. Humanity is strong, but we're also young. We need allies, teachers, friends. And what about the enemies? Admiral Wright asked. They are already talking about forming a coalition to destroy us. They see us as a threat. Then we show them we're not a threat. We use the fleet for defense, not conquest. We build, not destroy. We prove that humans can be trusted with this power. It sounded simple when she said it, but knew it would be the hardest thing humanity had ever done. The meeting lasted for hours. They argued and debated and eventually agreed on a basic structure. The Council of Caretakers would have 7 members, would lead it, at least for now. The others would be chosen based on expertise and character. It was not perfect, but it was a start. After the meeting, walked alone through the corridors of Atlas. The ship seemed to sense her mood. The lights dimmed slightly. The hum of the engines softened. You are troubled, Atlas said. I'm scared, admitted. I keep waiting for something to go wrong, for someone to make a mistake that destroys everything. That is wise. Fear keeps beings careful. The creators were never afraid. That was part of why they left. They had forgotten what it felt like to worry about the future. I wish I could forget. No, you do not. Your fear is what makes you a good caretaker. A being who does not fear will not protect. They will not care. You care very much. That is why I trust you. Stopped walking. You trust me. Yes, I have watched many beings over my long life. Most seek power for themselves. You seek power to protect others. That is rare. That is valuable. Felt tears in her eyes. She wiped them away quickly. Captains were not supposed to cry. Thank you, Atlas. That means a lot. You are welcome, caretaker. She continued walking. The fear was still there. It would always be there, but now it felt a little lighter. Far away, something else was happening. The Empire was the second largest power in the galaxy. They had ruled their territory for 5 million years. They were proud and fierce and utterly convinced of their own superiority. The news about the humans had shaken them to their core. High Commander stood in his war room, surrounded by his generals. They were planning something terrible. The humans are weak, said. They have held the artifact for 6 months and done nothing with it. They play with old machines while their enemies grow stronger. But the fleet, one general said, if they call the other ships. They will not call them. They are afraid of their own power. That is the human weakness. They always hesitate. They always worry. We will strike before they find their courage. The plan was simple but brutal. They had developed a new weapon, a device that could disrupt the energy systems of any machine. They had tested it on their own ships. It worked perfectly. They believed it would work on the precursor vessel as well. We will send a small force, explained. Fast ships carrying the disruptors. They will slip past the collective fleet and reach the artifact. Once the disruptors are activated, the ship will go dark. Then our main fleet will arrive and take what is ours. What about the humans? His face twisted into something ugly. Kill them all. Leave no survivors. We will tell the galaxy that they activated something dangerous, that they destroyed themselves. No one will know the truth. His generals nodded. They were loyal. They did not question their leader's orders. But they should have. Back on Atlas, David was making a discovery. He had been studying the ship's sensor systems for weeks. They were incredibly advanced, able to detect things across vast distances with perfect clarity. He was learning to read them slowly, like a child learning a new language. Tonight he noticed something strange. "Captain," he called through the communication system, "I think you need to see this." Arrived within minutes, David showed her the display. "These are long-range sensors," he explained. "They can see ships moving in hyperspace, and look here, there's a group of vessels heading toward us, fast. They're not using standard collective flight paths." Studied the display. 20 ships, small but powerful, moving in a formation designed for stealth. She said, "It has to be. What do we do?" Thought quickly. They could not fight. Not really. The Wanderer was the only human warship in the system, and it was tiny compared to the incoming threat. The collective fleet might help, but they might also just watch. No, she had to handle this herself. "Atlas," she said, "can you wake the fleet, all of it?" "I can wake individual ships. Waking all of them would require you to reach out from the command platform. It would be difficult. Painful, perhaps. The full connection is not meant for beings so young." Did not hesitate. "Then let's do it." She ran to the command center. Her team followed, confused and worried. She did not have time to explain. She stepped onto the platform. Immediately she felt the connection. 1,000 ships sleeping in the darkness, waiting, dreaming of the day they would wake. Reached out to all of them at once. It was like being struck by lightning. Pain flooded through her mind. She screamed but did not stop. She pushed harder, calling to the ships, demanding they wake. One by one they answered. 1,000 voices filled her head, ancient and powerful and strange. They asked who she was, why she called, what she needed. "Danger," she gasped. "Enemies coming, I need you to wake." The voices consulted with each other. It took only seconds, but it felt like years. "We will wake," they said together. "We will come. Hold, caretaker, we are with you." Collapsed off the platform, her team rushed to help her. Blood was running from her nose. Her eyes were unfocused. But she was smiling. "They're coming," she whispered, "all of them." Far away, in the dark spaces between galaxies, 1,000 ships began to move. Engines that had not fired in 3 billion years roared to life. Navigation systems calculated courses toward a single point. The fleet was waking. The strike force had no idea what was about to happen. They continued on their course, confident in their plan, certain of their victory. They were wrong. In the collective station, Ambassador was awakened by alarms. His aide rushed into his quarters, face pale with fear. "Ambassador, something is happening. Ships are appearing everywhere, hundreds of them. They're coming from outside the galaxy." Rose slowly. He felt very old, very tired. But he also felt something he had not felt in centuries. Wonder. "So it begins," he said softly. "The fleet has awakened. The galaxy would never be the same." And somewhere in the void, 1,000 ancient ships sang together for the first time in 3 billion years. They were going home. The strike force commander was named. He was a veteran of 50 campaigns. He had never known defeat. He did not expect to know it now. His ships moved through hyperspace like shadows. Silent, deadly, perfectly coordinated. In 6 hours they would reach the human position. In 7 hours the artifact would be dark and helpless. In 8 hours the Empire would control power beyond imagination. That was the plan. Then the sensors went insane. "Commander," his tactical officer shouted. "Contacts, hundreds of contacts. They're dropping out of hyperspace all around us." Looked at the display and felt his blood turn to ice. The ships were enormous, planet-sized vessels that dwarfed everything he had ever seen. They appeared in perfect formation, surrounding his fleet like a net closing around fish. "What are those things?" someone whispered. Everyone in the galaxy knew the legends. But legends were supposed to stay legends. They were not supposed to appear in real space and block your escape. "All ships reverse course," he ordered. "Get us out of here." It was too late. One of the great vessels moved toward them. It was not fast by normal standards. It did not need to be. When you were the size of a moon, you did not need speed. A voice echoed through every ship in the fleet. It was old and cold and absolutely certain. "You approach the caretaker with weapons and hostile intent. This is not permitted. Stand down immediately or be destroyed." Wanted to fight. Every instinct told him to attack, to go down in glory rather than surrender. But he was not a fool. He knew when he was beaten. "All ships power down weapons," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "Comply with their demands." His officers obeyed. They had no choice. The great vessel opened a bay in its side. One by one, the ships were pulled inside like leaves caught in a wind. They could not resist. The technology that held them was beyond anything they understood. Watched his fleet disappear into the belly of the ancient ship. He had never known defeat before. Now he knew it very well. Woke in the medical bay, her head hurt, her eyes burned. Her body felt like it had been beaten with hammers. But she was alive. "Captain," doctor rushed to her side. "Thank the stars, we thought we lost you." "What happened?" Her voice was rough, speaking hurt. "You called the fleet, all of it, they came. The strike force was captured, it's over." Tried to sit up, bad idea. The room spun around her. "Easy," said. "You pushed yourself too hard. Atlas says the full connection was never meant for a human mind. You're lucky you survived." Lay back down, she did not feel lucky. She felt like death. "The fleet, where is it?" "Inside one of the new ships. The third of the fleet, I think. They're being held there. The ship wants to know what to do with them." Closed her eyes. More decisions, more responsibility. She was so tired of it all. But she could not stop, not now. "Set up a communication link," she said. "I need to talk to the commander." Looked worried but nodded. He helped her sit up slowly, carefully. A screen was brought to her bedside. After a few minutes, it flickered to life. The face that appeared was not human. It was scaled and angular, with eyes that glowed like red coals. They were a reptilian species, cold-blooded in more ways than one. "I am Commander," the figure said. His voice was controlled but could see the fear in his eyes. "You have captured my fleet. What do you intend to do with us?" Considered the question. She could destroy them. The ships of the fleet could vaporize the vessels with barely a thought. It would send a message to the galaxy. It would show that humanity was not to be threatened. But that was not who she wanted to be. "I intend to let you go," she said. Blinked. Whatever he had expected, it was not that. "Let us go, after we came to attack you." "Yes, you failed. Your weapons would not have worked anyway. Atlas tells me the precursor ships are immune to energy disruption. Your mission was doomed from the start." Said nothing. He looked confused, lost. "Go home," Commander continued. "Tell your people what happened. Tell them that humanity does not want war. We have power now, yes, but we will not use it to conquer. We will use it to protect. If they leave us alone, we will leave them alone. If they attack us again, we will defend ourselves. It's that simple. And if I don't believe you, if I think this is a trick." Smiled. It hurt her face, but she did it anyway. "Then you don't know humans very well. We're terrible at tricks. We're too honest for our own good. Go home, Commander. Think about what I've said. Maybe someday we can be friends instead of enemies." She signaled for the screen to be turned off. The conversation was over. Was staring at her. "You're just letting them go, after everything they tried to do." "Yes." "Why?" Sighed. "Because killing them would be easy. Building peace is hard. And I've decided I'm going to do things the hard way." She lay back down and closed her eyes. She needed to rest. The galaxy would still be there when she woke up. The release of the fleet sent shockwaves through the collective. No one understood it. The humans had absolute power. They could have destroyed their enemies. Instead, they showed mercy. The council chamber was filled with arguing voices. Some called it weakness. Others called it wisdom. A few, very quietly, called it something else. They called it hope. Ambassador stood before the assembly. He was very old now. The stress of recent months had aged him further, but his voice was still strong. "Fellow representatives," he said, "we have witnessed something remarkable. The humans have been given the greatest power in the history of the galaxy. And what did they do with it? They defended themselves without attacking. They captured their enemies without killing. They offered peace instead of war." "Words," spat representative of his people had been humiliated. He wanted revenge. "Pretty words that mean nothing. The humans are simply biding their time. They will turn on us eventually. All powerful species do." "Do they?" asked. "Look at our own history, representative. When they gained power, you conquered 100 worlds. When my people, they were strong, we built an empire of 1,000 stars. Every species that has ever held power has used it to dominate others." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But the humans are different. They have planet-sized warships. They could crush us all. Instead, they form councils. They set rules. They limit their own power. They release prisoners instead of killing them. This is not the behavior of conquerors." "Then what is it?" someone asked. Smiled. It was a sad smile, full of ancient wisdom. "It is the behavior of caretakers, real caretakers, beings who understand that power is a responsibility, not a prize. I have lived for thousands of years. I have seen many civilizations rise and fall. I never thought I would see this. A species that chooses to be good when it could so easily be terrible." He turned to face the entire chamber. "I am going to visit the humans. I am going to offer the friendship of the people. I suggest that those who are wise do the same. The galaxy is changing. We can resist that change and be destroyed. Or we can embrace it and perhaps, finally, find the peace we have always pretended to seek." He walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the arguing continued, but some representatives followed him. Change was coming. It could not be stopped. Was feeling better when the message arrived. Ambassador wanted to meet. He was coming to Atlas personally with a delegation from the... Was surprised. They were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They rarely spoke to younger civilizations. They certainly never visited them. But she agreed. It was what she had wanted after all. Allies, friends, a chance to build something better. The ships arrived 2 days later. They were elegant vessels, built with a grace that human ships lacked. They looked like works of art. Was even more impressive in person. He was tall and thin, with skin that shimmered in shades of blue and silver. His eyes were deep and knowing. He moved with a slowness that suggested great age and great patience. "Captain," he said when they met, his voice was like music, "I have wanted to meet you for some time." "Ambassador, welcome to Atlas." They walked together through the ship, showed him the wonders she had discovered, the gardens and libraries and machines beyond imagination, looked at everything with the eyes of someone who had seen many marvels in a long life. But even he seemed impressed. "The precursors were greater than we knew," he said. "We thought their ruins were their legacy, but this is beyond anything we imagined." "It's overwhelming," admitted. "Some days I feel like a child playing with things I don't understand." That is wise. Children who know they are children are safer than adults who think they know everything. They came to the command center, showed him the platform, explained how it connected to the fleet. 1,000 ships, murmured, all waiting for your command. Does it frighten you? Every day. Good, power should be frightening. The moment it stops being frightening is the moment it becomes dangerous. They sat together in a chamber that Atlas had prepared for them. Food and drink were provided, adapted for both human and needs. The ship was thoughtful that way. "I came to offer friendship," said. but also to give you warning. The galaxy is not ready for what has happened. Many species will try to destroy you before you grow too strong. Others will try to manipulate you, to use your power for their own purposes. I know, we've already seen both. You have seen nothing yet. The attack was clumsy and desperate. Future enemies will be smarter. They will come with smiles and treaties. They will offer partnerships that hide traps. They will try to turn humans against each other. They will do everything possible to break you. Nodded, she had expected this. It was how the galaxy worked. Everyone competed. Everyone schemed. Trust was rare and usually misplaced. "What do you suggest?" she asked. Was quiet for a moment, then he spoke carefully. "Be human, that is my advice. Your species has something that older races have lost. You have passion and curiosity and stubbornness. You believe in things, fairness, justice, hope. These seem like weaknesses to species like mine, but I am beginning to think they are strengths. We're far from perfect. Of course, but you try to be better. You fail and you try again. Most species stop trying after a few million years. They become cynical. They stop believing that change is possible. You still believe. Hold on to that, Captain. It is more valuable than all the ships in the fleet." Felt something warm in her chest. It was nice to hear that humanity's flaws might also be their virtues. "Thank you, Ambassador. That means more than you know. Call me. I think we will be working together for a long time." They talked for hours, about politics and history and the strange path that had brought them to this moment. By the end, felt like she had made a real friend, not just an ally. It was a good feeling. After left, returned to the command platform. She reached out to the fleet, not with urgency this time, but with curiosity. She wanted to understand them better. 1,000 voices answered. They told her their names and their purposes: war ships and builder ships, explorers and healers, ships designed to terraform worlds and ships designed to destroy stars. The fleet could do anything. But they would only do what the caretaker asked. Made a decision. She called a meeting of the Council of Caretakers. When everyone was assembled, she told them her plan. "We're going to build something," she said. "Not weapons, not fortresses. We're going to build a city." "A city?" Admiral Wright looked confused. "Where?" "Here in this system. A neutral place where species from across the galaxy can come together, trade, talk, solve problems without fighting. We'll call it Haven." "That's ambitious," Doctor said. "Most species don't trust each other enough for something like that." "Then we'll teach them to trust. One step at a time. They are with us. Others will follow. We'll create something new, something better." The council discussed the plan for days. There were arguments and concerns and endless questions, but in the end they agreed. Haven would be built. Reached out to the constructor ship she had contacted before. The second of the fleet, she asked it to come. It arrived 3 weeks later. It was even larger than Atlas. Its surface was covered with machines and factories and systems designed for one purpose: building. Gave it instructions. The ship accepted them eagerly. It had been waiting so long to create again. Within days, the construction began. Stations appeared in orbit around Atlas, platforms and docks and habitats. The constructor ship worked without rest, shaping metal and energy into structures of impossible beauty. The galaxy watched in astonishment. Haven was being born, and humanity was showing the galaxy what they truly were. Not conquerors, not destroyers. Builders. The future had begun. 5 years had passed since first touched the awakening symbol. Haven had grown beyond anything she had imagined. The station now orbited Atlas like a ring of light. Millions of beings lived there, traders and diplomats and scientists from hundreds of species. They came seeking opportunity. They came seeking peace. They came seeking the wonder that humanity had promised to share. Stood on the observation deck of Atlas looking down at her creation. She was older now, Gray had appeared in her hair. Lines had formed around her eyes, but she was proud, so very proud. "You built something beautiful," said a voice beside her. She turned to find Ambassador standing there. He had become one of her closest advisors over the years. His wisdom had helped guide humanity through countless crises. "We built it together," said, "humans and dozens of other species. Haven belongs to everyone. That is what makes it special. In all my long life, I have never seen species work together like this. You changed something. You changed how the galaxy thinks about itself." Smiled, but there was sadness in it. She knew that not everyone was happy with the changes. The Empire had not joined Haven. They remained hostile, convinced that humanity was somehow tricking everyone. Other species also stayed away, too proud or too afraid to accept the new order. But many had come, more every year. "The Council meets in an hour," reminded her. "The vote on the new exploration program." Nodded. "I know. I've been thinking about it all morning." The exploration program was ambitious. With the fleet's help, humanity wanted to send ships beyond the galaxy, into the void between stars, into places no one had ever gone. Some council members were worried. They feared what might be found out there. The precursors had left for a reason. Maybe some things were better left undiscovered. But disagreed. Exploration was in humanity's nature. It was what had brought them to the stars in the first place. It was what had led them to Atlas. She would not stop now. "I should prepare," she said. "Thank you for keeping me company, old friend." Made the gesture that his people used to show affection. "Always, always." She walked through the corridors of Atlas. Even after 5 years, she still discovered new wonders. Last week, she had found a room that seemed to contain a small star, burning eternally without fuel. The week before, she had discovered a garden where plants made of light grew in patterns that shifted with her emotions. The precursors had been artists as much as engineers. Their creations were meant to inspire as well as function. She reached the council chamber. The other members were already there. Admiral Wright had become the head of Haven's defense force. His fleet now included ships from a dozen species, all working together to protect the station. Doctor continued to study precursor technology. He had written hundreds of papers, each one revealing new wonders. Scientists across the galaxy read his work with amazement. Lieutenant, now commander, led the security teams that kept Haven safe. She was tough and fair, respected by everyone. David had become the leading expert on precursor engineering. He had taught hundreds of students from dozens of species. His knowledge had helped build Haven and would help build whatever came next. Doctor managed the complex diplomatic relationships between Haven and the rest of the galaxy. Her patience and wisdom had prevented more conflicts than anyone knew. And there were new faces too, representatives from the species who had once been strangers were now partners. This was what had dreamed of. This was why she had refused to give up. "Let's begin," she said, taking her seat at the head of the table. The debate was long and difficult. The exploration program would require resources that could be used elsewhere. It would take ships away from defensive duties. It carried risks that no one could fully calculate. But in the end, the vote passed. Humanity would reach beyond the galaxy. Felt tears in her eyes. She did not try to hide them. "This is a great day," she said, "for humanity, for Haven, for everyone who believes that the future can be better than the past." The council members applauded. Even those who had voted against the program seemed moved by the moment. After the meeting, returned to her quarters. She was tired. These days, she was always tired. The years of stress and responsibility had taken their toll. But she could not rest yet. There was one more thing she needed to do. She walked to the command center and stepped onto the platform. The connection to the fleet opened immediately, as comfortable now as breathing. "Atlas," she said, I need to speak to the fleet, all of them. Of course, caretaker. 1,000 voices filled her mind. They were familiar now, like old friends she had known forever. I have news, she said. We are going to explore beyond the galaxy. We are going to seek new wonders, new knowledge, perhaps even answers to questions we have not yet thought to ask. The fleet listened. But I will not force any of you to come. The precursors gave you free will. You chose to serve the caretakers, but you can also choose to stop. If any of you want to remain here, in the galaxy you have known for 3 billion years, I will understand. Silence. Then the voices answered, one by one. We will come. We have waited long enough. The creators went beyond. Perhaps we will find them. We are with you, caretaker. We are with you. We are with you. 1,000 ships, speaking as one, felt their excitement, their hope, their ancient longing for something new. Thank you, she said. All of you, thank you. She stepped off the platform. Her heart was full. The preparations took months. Ships had to be chosen, crews had to be trained, supplies had to be gathered. The journey would be long. Beyond the galaxy was a vast emptiness. It would take years to cross. But humanity was patient when it needed to be. The expedition was led by a ship called the Horizon. It was one of the explorer vessels in the fleet, designed specifically for long journeys into unknown space. It was accompanied by 100 other ships, each one with a specific purpose. Was not going. She was too old now, too important to Haven to leave. The expedition would be led by her successor, a young woman named Maya, Doctor's granddaughter. She had grown up on Atlas, surrounded by precursor wonders. She was curious and brave and exactly what the mission needed. On the day of departure, stood on the observation deck and watched the ships gather. Maya came to say goodbye. I wish you were coming with us, the young woman said. So do I, but Haven needs me here, and you don't need an old woman slowing you down. Maya smiled. You're not old, you're legendary. Laughed. It hurt a little, but she did it anyway. Find something wonderful out there, she said. Find the answers we've been looking for, and if you meet the precursors, tell them thank you for everything. I will. They embraced. Then Maya walked away to join her ship. Watched as the fleet moved into formation. 100 ships, preparing to leave everything they had ever known. Atlas spoke in her mind. This is a great moment, caretaker. The creators would be proud. I hope so, I really hope so. The ships began to accelerate, slowly at first, then faster and faster. They headed toward the edge of the galaxy, toward the darkness between stars. Watched until they disappeared from view. Then she went back to work. There was always more work to do. The years passed. Grew older, her hair turned white, her steps became slow, but she never stopped working, never stopped building, never stopped hopping. Haven continued to grow. New species joined every year. The old conflicts faded, replaced by cooperation and trade. They eventually made peace, though they never fully trusted anyone. The galaxy was changing, slowly but surely. News came from the expedition sometimes, brief messages that crossed the vast distances. They had found wonders, empty galaxies, strange phenomena, signs that the precursors had passed this way long ago. But no answers, not yet. Was sitting in her garden when the final message came. She was very old now. Most of her friends were gone, had passed away 3 years earlier, surrounded by family and honored by the entire collective. Had died in his sleep, smiling at some dream no one would ever know. But remained, stubborn to the end. Captain, said a young aide, we've received a transmission from the Horizon. It's marked urgent. Took the device with trembling hands. She pressed play. Maya's face appeared on the screen. She was older too. 20 years had passed since she left, but her eyes were bright with excitement. Maya said, we found them. His heart stopped. The precursors. They're alive, they're waiting for us, they want to meet the caretakers. The screen showed an image, something vast and beautiful, a structure beyond any scale could comprehend, bigger than galaxies, made of light and energy and things that had no names. They said they've been watching, Maya continued. They said they're proud of what we've done. They said they're ready to come home. Stared at the image, tears ran down her face. The precursors alive, waiting. Everything humanity had built, everything they had sacrificed, it had led to this. They have so much to teach us, Maya said, and they want to learn from us too. They said that in all their billions of years, they never imagined someone like us. Someone so young but so full of hope. They said we reminded them of themselves back when they were new. Could not speak, she could barely breathe. We're bringing them home, all of them. The universe is about to change again, and you made it possible. The message ended. Sat in her garden, surrounded by flowers she had planted decades ago. The suns of Haven warmed her old bones. Somewhere above her, the fleet waited, patient as ever. She thought about everything that had happened, the discovery, the fear, the hope, the endless work and the impossible dreams. She thought about her team, long gone now, about and his wisdom, about the billions of beings who had come to Haven seeking something better. She thought about humanity, her strange, stubborn, beautiful species, so young, so full of flaws, so determined to make things right. They had done it. They had proven themselves worthy. She closed her eyes and smiled. Atlas, she said softly, thank you for everything. You are welcome, caretaker, you are welcome. The garden was quiet, the suns were warm, the future was bright. First caretaker of the fleet, died peacefully in her garden on a summer afternoon. But she did not die forgotten. The galaxy remembered. They built statues of her on 1,000 worlds. They named stars and ships and cities after her. They told stories about the brave captain who had touched a symbol on an ancient wall and changed everything. And when the precursors returned, they asked to see her grave. They knelt before it, these ancient beings of light and power. They paid their respects to a small creature from a small planet who had believed in something bigger than herself. She was worthy, they said. She was more than worthy. Humanity stood beside them, no longer children, no longer newcomers. They had earned their place among the stars. The galaxy had gazed in astonishment, and humanity had answered with hope. The story did not end there. Stories never really end. But that chapter was complete. A new one was beginning. The precursors were home. The fleet was awake. The caretakers were ready. And somewhere in a garden that would bloom forever, rested in peace. She had done well. She had done very well indeed. This was the legacy of humanity. This was their gift to the universe. Hope, courage, the belief that tomorrow could be better than today. It was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.